Bert Rotundo is a New York trained actor, producer, and voice artist whose career spans stage, screen, and digital media. He is known for his acclaimed stage work in Frankie and Johnny and the Claire de Lune, producing indie films like It's God, and executive producing viral web content such as Generation Awesome and The Bartender Hates You. That sounds familiar. A true creative polymath, Bert combines acting, writing, producing, and fine arts to tell compelling stories and inspire emerging artists. Welcome.
Thank you. I couldn't have said that better myself. That was beautiful, Jeff. I'm going to steal that.
I take no credit. The producers put that together for me, so I get a little heads up about my guests a little bit beforehand. I had to look up what a polymath was, so congratulations on being a polymath. It's very impressive. So you have morphed a bit in your career, and we were speaking a little bit before the show about where you did it and now what you're up to. But let's start sort of at the beginning, because you grew up in a home, right, that celebrated movies and theater. So was that sort of the beginning of the Bert story in
Oh,
theater?
yeah, big time. My dad, and later I found out that his father, my grandfather, patriarch of the family, both wanted to be actors. I
Mm.
didn't find out about my grandfather wanting to be an actor until I graduated high school. He pulled me on the side and he's like, "Come here, I want to show you something." He pulls out his little autograph book and he says, "What does it say here under career?" And I looked down and it said actor, and I had no idea. And I looked up at him with surprise and he looks at me and he goes, "You know what they say?" And I go, "What?" And he goes, "Third one always makes it." It was like, "Oh, wow," and that was such a nice blessing from my grandfather. But early on, growing up, movies were celebrated in this house, theater was celebrated in this house. It was always we had movie nights pretty much 5 to 6 nights a week.
Wow.
My dad was a big cinephile, and he had one of the first VHS home movie cameras. So from a very young age, I was in front of the camera, and my dad was, like, trying to get me to do commercials and copy, and stuff like that. So I had this not entitled, but an entitled sense of, like, I wanna be in front of the camera, and I
Right.
started doing plays very early, and we used to watch the Oscars. It was like a high holiday in my house. Like, "Oh god, everybody quiet, nobody come over," we had the TV on, watched all the red carpets. So from a very early age, movies and theater and acting was celebrated and put on a pedestal. So I started doing plays at a very young age,
Mhm.
really fell in love with it, got really comfortable in front of an audience. And then eventually I went to theater school, and really my dad was very big on, like, "Look, you gotta pay your dues.
Right.
If you wanna do this as a profession, you can't just willy-nilly just walk in." The people that
Mhm.
you know and respect and love their work, those people just didn't walk in and get the job. They worked on their craft. And so my dad instilled that in me. And I was very lucky to have my mom and my dad who were very, very supportive, knew very early on that there was nothing else for me. This is what I want to do,
That's great.
and which is great. Not everybody has that, so I'm
I was
exceptionally
gonna say, not everybody wants their son to be an actor.
no. Well, my mom was pushing for lawyer there for a little bit, but I think she kinda got it really quick that that wasn't gonna happen. So I went to theater school. I went to, American Musical and Dramatic Academy in New York City, met some great people, got really great theater training, and then cut my teeth in New York for a little bit, doing some theater and bouncing around, and then got my taste of film for the first time. A producer friend asked me to come and audition, and I auditioned, and I got the part, and got to do my first movie at around 21.
Wow.
And
Fantastic.
yeah, I had auditioned as a kid. My dad would take me to these big open calls, and I had some brush with almost success early on. I had auditioned for the young Tom Cruise role in Born on the 4th of July. They'd open cast here on Long Island, and I had
Mm.
gone, and I got the final callbacks. In fact, I was on a veil to play it, and then production decided to move locations to Texas, decided to get somebody there or close to the West Coast. So that was my first brush with success and my first feeling of that Hollywood, letdown.
Right.
Yeah, it was so big. It was crazy. I read for Oliver Stone, and it was a very cool experience at a young age to get that experience, and had it gone the other way, I don't know where I'd be right now. Maybe I would have burnt out and maybe I would have been a lawyer at this point, but
Right. That's interesting, because looking back at it, the actor that played his younger brother did have a more ethnic look than the rest of the family.
yeah.
And I'm imagining you with a fuller head of hair than you have presently at 14 or however old the kid was, would be your Long Island kid.
Yeah, well, Ronnie Kovic, who he was playing, They were from Long Island, they were from Massapequa, so just a couple
Right.
towns over, and I was actually auditioning to play the younger Tom Cruise in the movie, and in the film, they would that role, because it was based on the book, Born on the 4th of July, that part was much larger, and in the film, I believe when I saw it, they had really narrowed it down and got to the meat of the story. In fact, I have a birthmark in the same place as Tom Cruise. It's not as prominent now as I'm older, but Tom and I have the same birthmark, which I
Right.
guess they saw that and were like, "Okay, can this kid act?"
Right.
And like 9 callbacks later,
And then you started dating Nicole Kidman, and it was the
and
cows
then it
out of
might, and it just my career just skyrocketed.
right. So it started early, and then, that's a common thread that we hear. People get bitten by the bug early, but it's fun. It's, when you're a kid, it's carefree and you're doing it, but you've got a roof over your head and, 3 squares a day. But a lot of people don't follow through with it because it's like you say, there's the heartbreak of rejection. There's the unknowing about how you're going to sustain yourself. But you did actually.
Well, I had some really great teachers coming up,
Mhm.
some fantastic teachers all along the way, both in college and then privately. I studied with a bunch. And one of the things that a lot of them had made very clear very early on was if you're looking to get famous and that's what you're looking for, there are plenty of ways to get famous. If
Right.
you really love acting, then pursue acting for the love of the art itself and
Hmm.
do it for that reason, not for what the spoils of acting.
Right. It's great
You're
advice.
going for the spoils, you're gonna be highly disappointed. There's a great Sufi saying that you're not entitled to the fruits of your labor, you're only entitled to the labor itself. So the labor
Mhm.
itself has to be something that you enjoy.
Right.
And it's something that I do love, and it's sort of propelled me into other areas of writing and directing and producing. I like making films. I
Mhm.
like getting together with a bunch of like-minded people who are all dead set on getting something created and making something that will live forever. That's one of the things that's great. It doesn't matter what happens on the day, there's fires that you're putting out and this, that, and the other thing and pulling your hair out. And that's why I don't have any hair. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because no one's going to remember all the craziness that happened on the day. They're only going to remember what's in the can,
Right.
what
Right.
we made. And so there's something really special about that. It's capturing lightning in a bottle, it's really lit me up inside. And so for that, that's what keeps me coming back. And the
Right.
rejection, yeah, it's rejection, but I keep coming back because I want to capture that lightning again.
Right. Right. That's what creatives do.
Yeah.
So Frankie and Johnny in the Claire de Lune, that's some serious heavy
Yeah.
acting going on down there.
That was a big undertaking. That was one of those moments where it was like, "Okay, Geronimo, let's do this." I was very lucky to have a fantastic director in Frank Ross. I was
Mhm.
encouraged by my acting teacher, the late and great Sal Romeo, and I had the greatest co-star anyone could want, Jessica Blair,
Mhm.
who I saw doing another play. And after the show, went up to her and I said, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing this play. I really want to do this play with you." And she said, "Let's do it." We workshopped it for about 6 months. And then when we felt like we were good with it, we jumped into rehearsals and produced it ourselves and put it on in a little 33-seat house in Toluca Lake, California. And it was really well received, great reviews. For the first time, made me realize that I could lead a film, I could lead a production. I wasn't just a character actor in the background, It was my
Mhm.
time to really kinda step up and take that leading rein.
Yeah.
And it was sort of a coming of age. In fact, funny enough, my dad flew out to come and see the show, and my dad came to see the show, he came to see it every night that he was there that opening weekend, and I was driving him back to the airport. And we're driving back, and he goes, and I hear a little crackle in his voice. And my dad's pretty stoic. And
Mhm.
he goes, "You've grown up. You're a man now." I was in my mid-30s at the time. And he goes, "You did a great job." And everybody that came to see it came up to me and was just like, "Oh my God, your son's fantastic." And he says, "You paid your dues. You're ready."
Nice.
And I was like, "I'm driving," and so I was like, "Okay, thanks, dad," and then I dropped him off at the airport, and I got about 2 exits from the airport, and I had to pull over because it
You're
hit me,
balling.
and I called him, and I was like, "Dad, I love you, thank you so much," and, we had a good little cry on the phone, but it was that coming of age that's sort of like, okay, I got that approval I guess I'd have been seeking from a young age as a kid, so
Right.
yeah.
Well, it's really important because like we were talking about, you do go through a lot of rejections and, it takes you a seasoned sort of auditioner to understand you're not gonna not only not gonna get every audition, you're not gonna get the majority of the auditions. And it has nothing to do with your skill sets or talents or
Right.
performance even that day. It has to do with how the director or the producer sees the character in their eye. So
Yeah.
getting that kind of affirmation from someone whose opinion you really, really value,
Yeah.
it's a good dad.
He's a great dad, and he's still very supportive. We just launched, I have a movie that we just put on YouTube, just launched YouTube. It did a festival run, and it was a short, but, it was,
Mhm.
guys that I've worked with a couple times. We're really proud of it, called Prada and Pumpernickel, and we literally launched it yesterday, and my dad's been blowing up social media with it, my sister, my family's so supportive, so it's so great, you know? So great to have that supportive team.
Right. You were born with your own PR
I
company.
really am. My dad should be my agent.
That's great. Well, if it sticks the family together with the glue. I wanna, understand, so you obviously were pretty involved in acting, I mean, having studied it as a young child and then doing these early works or even into your 30s, but you've also done producing, and that's hard, when I'm on small indie films or even a feature film, that's hard, that producer's, like, juggling, like, a million
It
things.
is the wild, wild west,
Yeah.
and people have asked me several times, "How do I get into producing?" And I
Mm,
honestly don't really necessarily have an answer. I lucked out. I was bartending, and I was working with a group of guys producing some viral videos, some short comedy videos, with, Generation Awesome, and we were a little ahead of the curve before social media. We were putting stuff on YouTube and putting stuff on Funny or Die, which had just started at that time, and we were getting some buzz. We were presenting them at a local bar where we'd invite people to come and see the premiere, and we'd get
mm,
250 people come out, and what I realized was that, what I was doing was I was actually producing, and so when I
mhm,
started working at this place called the Village Idiot, they just closed a couple of years ago, great place on Melrose, great group of artists all working there, and one of the women I got to work with, Susanna Hillard, her boyfriend at the time, Ryan Reese, who's now her husband, I met him at the Christmas party, and she had showed him some of my videos, and him and I started talking, became fast friends at the Christmas party, and he's like, "Look, anytime you need help, I'd love to help you," and I said the same thing to him, and about 3 months later, he called me up and was like, "Hey, we're shooting a sizzle reel for a film," which ended up being It's God. "I'd love for you to come out and, associate produce it. We're trying to raise the money to make this movie. Would
mhm.
you do it? I can only pay you this much." And I was like, "Oh, you're gonna pay me? I was gonna do it for free, but great," you know? And so I was bartending at night and producing during the day, and we were all kinda new at it, so we were all learning as we went, and I've since produced numerous things with them. Gary Brunskill, the director of that and the writer of that. We also produced a movie called The Adventures of the Naked Umbrella, which is on Prime, which I actually have a co-star, role in that. I play the villains, don't tell anybody. But, one of the things is find your people
Right.
and the only way to really do it is get out there or find somebody who's been doing it for a really long time that's willing to
Mm,
kinda hip pocket you and let you follow them around and see. Because 'Cause I'm sure there are people who are legit. I have producer friends who are line producers where there's more about the budget and really kinda dealing with the actual overall production and getting the money and making sure that the budget's good. That's not really what I was involved with. I was more about the hands-on making sure that we had this location and that and just
right,
being there. You are the everything, the glue that holds it together.
right,
The best
right,
way to do it is make your own stuff. Get out there, fail forward,
right.
and learn from your mistakes, and then it's not an accident, it's not a mistake if you keep doing it that way.
This is part of this podcast is also for people to say, could I do this? I mean, I've been, an IBM executive or I've been, a mechanic, The common theme that's spoken through our guests is the sense of camaraderie and the support. And kind of once you find this little niche
Mm,
of director, writer, producer, talent, that support group a lot of times maintains, I'll recommend you for this and can you join us for that?
yeah.
And I think a lot of people might be surprised that they wouldn't see the entertainment industry as so supportive, and it is.
It is, it really is, there's a lot of I moving back to New York, for instance, there's a lot of people like, "Oh, you lived in LA," and I'm like, "Have you been
Yeah.
to LA, first of all?" A lot of people talk smack about LA, and a lot of people have ideas of what it is, but there's a lot yes, anywhere in any business, there's gonna be shady folks, right? Everybody
Right.
at any business is gonna be an underbelly looking to take advantage of people, right?
Right.
And the acting and the entertainment industry is no different, but at the same time, there's so many people that have this incredible integrity that are there for all the right reasons and are really there at the end of the day because they grew up like me, watching movies, falling in love with being in that theater and being transported for 2 hours. And
Mhm.
there are great people. And the thing is, it's about finding your community. You find
Mhm.
your community, and you know what? You may work in a job and you may 90% of those people might be people that, they treated you like crap and they weren't nice to you, but there's one person that you're like, "That person I wanna work with again." And that's
Right.
how it works. You go, "Hey, man, can I get your number? I wanna do this thing," and you start to build this community, and next thing you know, 10 years goes by, and you've got this community of like-minded people that,
Right.
you have a shorthand with now.
Right.
Like working with Ryan Reese and Jerry Brunskill on several features. Now, Ryan will look at me and be like, "Ah," and I'll be like, "I got it. I know what you." He doesn't even have to say it anymore. I know exactly what needs to be done. And that's where you wanna be, You look at the great teams, Adam Sandler, all these guys, Marty Scorsese, all these guys who have their team together, they work with all the same people. You see them time and time again because
Very
you get
common.
these people who they're like-minded, they kinda meld and they merge and they work as a cohesive unit.
Right. Right.
It's I play volleyball with my best friend since I moved back. In fact, I got a tournament tonight, we're in the playoffs,
Good luck.
and I played with all my best friends and that I grew up and I played in high school with, and it's no different, it's being able to understand and move as a unit because it is not
Mhm.
about a singular person, it's about a team moving together, and it's about building that team, both creatively and commercially.
Right. It's not uncommon that while people are pursuing careers in theater as a performer, that you have a day job.
Mm.
And we've had people here who have been in the food service industry, nannies, tech industry, all different kinds of ways to make money to support themselves while they pursue their craft. I will say you are the first bartender, and the reason I bring it up is that it's been said or alleged that people after a libation or two might share personal details with their bartender. So I'm just wondering, did you ever have a customer that left an impression on you that maybe was a basis for a character that maybe you played or developed?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
I should have an honorary PhD in psychology, sociology, mixology, and
Yeah,
anthropology at this point for the amount of years that I've spent behind the bar, and it's been look, a survival job is necessary, it's great, and bartending would really afforded me the ability to work nights and audition and work during the day, and it's flexible, I don't have a 9 to 5 where I have to be there Monday through Friday.
right.
So, working weekends, a lot of things don't shoot on the weekends. Very rarely will you shoot on a weekend, especially, network television and such. But yeah, definitely a lot of it makes you good with people. That's in fact, when I got asked to come on as associate producer for the sizzle reel of It's God, which ended up I came on as an associate on the actual feature a year later. The reason why I got the job was Ryan came to me and Jerry came to me and says, "You're great with people."
Mm.
And that is a testament to just working behind the bar. You have to be able to roll with the punches. You have to be able to, you're dealing with high stakes, but you're moving around, you've got 18 things going on in your head.
Time is money on a set,
Time is money.
you gotta it's on track.
Yeah, and you gotta be able to, spin a lot of plates at one time, and bartending really helped me. It was a great training ground for that. I think I spent way too many years there. I overstayed my welcome a little bit, but it was a blessing to be able to have that as a go-to.
Alright, the producers encouraged me first of all, they thought you were a gem of a guy. I just thought I'd let you know your personality vibe was, like, right up there with, like, Saint Sebastian or somebody. One of the questions that they encouraged me after they had spoken with you was, did you have find a moment or a project that made you feel like you were truly contributing to something meaningful? And I think it was when your dad said, "You done good, kid." So I think we covered that ground, but is there anything else you would wanna add about a particular role that propelled you in your mind, in your confidence?
Yeah, I think anytime you as an artist, but as an actor, anytime that I did a role that when I was offered it or auditioned for it and got it, where I was like, "Oh crap, how the hell am I gonna do this?" And, you just sort of walk through the fire sort of situation and you come through it and you're like, "Wow, I did it." And
Right.
not by sheer luck, but by sheer will and going, "Okay, got it.
Mhm.
Now you gotta show up and do the job." The Adventures of the Naked Umbrella, that film, because I was producing and co-starring in it, that was a rough shoot. I mean, making movies is tough. We made a movie in the Salton Sea in Southern California in July. The low temperature was 110 degrees. The high was 125
Oh,
degrees.
oh.
At about 107 degrees, cameras stop working, cars stop working, electronics, people stop working, your brain
Mm.
shuts down. And so to make a movie that is good and looks good and sounds good and checks all the boxes, that was an accomplishment on, and we didn't kill anybody, no one died, and it was a rough go, and every day was like, "Okay, here we go, put one foot in front of the other and show up." But I think Frankie and Johnny was the first one that made me go, "Okay, there's
Good.
something here, I can do this."
Good for
And
you.
that led to the next, "Okay, now I'm gonna go up and climb up to this plateau and then keep going?"
Of course, as is my nature, every interview we go over. So, of course, we've gone over significantly.
I got time, so as long as you got time.
The producers will make it work. But I wanted to just kind of echo back or harken back to something you just said earlier, because I think a lot of people that might be listening to this might take from it an important lesson that there are people like you and other guests have been on and talk about. Yeah, I decided I was going to make this commitment. I've got this passion for it, and then you're given a break. You get a role. You win an audition, and then you go into that rehearsal or something, and you're like, "I'm an imposter. I don't belong here." Your confidence is shattered. But like you just said, you are worth it. And you pull it from inside of you, and you arrive. With the performance that you're supposed to give. So, like that self questioning is just part of the process of growing.
It is, I think it's a safety mechanism that we have to keep us safe. Our nervous
Mhm.
systems don't like to go outside of that zone that we've set up for ourselves. And as an artist, you have to push that.
Right.
If you're really truly being true to your art, you're trying to push through that boundary every time. Look, there are plenty of people who are doing great and they do the same thing over and over again and they knock it out of the park and their box offices are huge. But for me to get excited about something, it has to scare me.
Right.
Because I've done a lot of things that I'm like, it's a paycheck, and I'm like, "Cool, I can do this in my sleep." I still do the work, I still make sure that I do all the homework that I need to do, but when it's scary, when it's like, "Ooh, I don't can I do this? Can I pull this off?" That's where the cheddar is.
And you grow.
Yeah,
Yeah, who wants to be the Liberty Bibbity guy all their life? Great meeting you. Good luck at volleyball.
thank
I
you.
don't know what you say. You don't break a leg at volleyball. Whatever you do, I wish you the best. Good luck. And it was a pleasure having you.